You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Hey guys, Roger back at you. Thanks for tuning in. In this week's episode, I am joining up with my good friend, Jaime Oikle of runningrestaurants.com, a fellow industry pro. Jaime and I work together quite a bit, and we're interviewing Mr. Nick Bogacz, who is a real pizza guy, a pizza guru, if you will. Not only has he competed on the world champion pizza stage, his company has won numerous global awards for his pizza, and he is building a pizza empire. You're not going to want to miss this episode because in it we're talking about everything. The importance of systems, the importance of profitability, and training and motivating and keeping a great staff and incentivizing your staff. And of course, how to deal with all the different shifts and unexpected challenges that the COVID crisis keeps throwing at us. So whether you love pizza or whether you like to eat it or whether you have a pizza restaurant or just any old restaurant, this business is all about passion and being resourceful and about best practices and systems. And this episode has it all. So no matter what you run, restaurant, hotel, hospitality enterprise of any kind, stay tuned because this is a big one. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars podcast, and these are engaging topics that help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, deliver amazing guest service experiences. With me today, two people. First, I'd like to introduce Jaime Oikle of runningrestaurants.com as our co-host. Jaime joins me on many of these recordings. We do a lot of, industry events together. And our guest today, Mr. Nick Bogacz, and he is a pizza guy through and through. He has a business in Greater Pittsburgh. It's called Caliente Pizza and Draft House. And welcome to the show today, Nick. We're so happy to have you here.
Roger, Jaime, thanks for having me on.
This is awesome stuff. Now, we normally start out by talking about, the guest backstory in the restaurant business, the hospitality space. How did that happen for you? I know you're a delivery driver. We're going to get to that. But before all this happened, did you work in restaurants as a kid?
I've been in the pizza industry since 1996, so almost 25 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the famous story, Jaime, you're going to love this, and the audience will as well. Now, Nick was literally driving on his very first delivery, and he wrecked his car, and he had to stop and borrow his mom's car to complete the delivery, and it all started from there. Want to tell us that story?
Sure. So, when I was 17, I was a hungry 17-year-old. I had a lot of entrepreneurial spirit from an early age, cutting grass and running baseball card shows and flipping baseball cards. And then when I got to get old enough to have a real job, I was washing cars, and my buddy said to me, "Man, I'm making a lot more tips delivering pizzas than you are washing cars." And I said, "I guess I got to see what this delivering pizza thing is all about." So I went in and I told the guy that was hiring me, "Hey, I can work 3 to 11 every single day." I bet a lot of guys out there in the restaurant business wish they would have that guy walk in and say they could close every day 3 on. But, I did. And he said, "Okay, how old are you?" And I said, 17. And he said, "You tell nobody." And, because you can't deliver pizzas under 18. So I got hired, and first Friday I was delivering my car, took my first delivery, and smack, I hit somebody right from the rear end. And the car was pretty much under construction for the next 2 months. And I borrowed my mom's car, and then I delivered in my mom's car for about the next 6 months. And then I wrecked her car. And then I ended up inside. My mom said, "Maybe you should work inside." And I just fell in love with the pizza industry and the restaurant industry in general, just because I was a young person that always loved sports. I was a skinny beanpole, so that equates to one thing, coach. So I had a lot of young leadership abilities. I had a youth foundation right down the street from me. I coached my younger brother's hockey teams, baseball teams. And when I got to the restaurant and pizza industry, I just fell in love with the team atmosphere of it.
God, that's a great story. Nick, you and I have a bunch in common because when I was in college and in graduate school, I started 2 pizza delivery companies. I didn't actually own the pizza restaurants. I simply contracted with local businesses close to campus. I hired the drivers and I put the whole system together, and I just got a percentage of the business that we drove in from campus, and that lasted for years, and that was a lot of fun. And then who knew that so many decades later, I would literally be in the pizza business myself. I mean, I started 2 wood-fired brick oven pizzerias that I ran for 20 plus years. And I no longer have pizzerias, but, we're sort of kindred spirits in that way.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about how you started Caliente and where the idea came from. So Caliente, if I'm not incorrect, means hot in Spanish. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. So the name obviously makes sense, and you had a vision you saw an opportunity and you had a vision. Let's talk about how the whole business came together before you started growing it, your very first store.
All right. So a lot of it, a lot of people look at Caliente's success. In the last 8 years, we've grown 5 stores and over $9 million and close to $10 million in sales. So I think a lot of people kind of think that it was an overnight success. But if you back it off, and I'm 42 now, so that takes us to when I was 34. So there's a lot of gap in there between 17-year-old delivery kid and 34 year old guy that's going to buy his first pizza shop, so a lot of gap in there. And the gap was, to give you the quick version, my wife and I have been together 20 years now, married. We've got 2 kids, they're 20 and 18. That means that when we were 21 and 20, we started having kids. I didn't go to college. I was a shift manager after I wrecked that second car, and I thought I had it made. What do I need college for? I'm a 19-year-old kid that's a shift manager of a restaurant. I don't need to go to college. So basically, when we had found out we were going to have kids, we got married, we got a house, renting a house, and I needed to become a general manager. So I found a local pizzeria that let me be a general manager. Everywhere I've ever worked at, I sponged off of the owners or the managers that I worked at. That'll fast forward all the way to last year when I wrote a book called The Pizza Equation. What it did was it took every single thing that I learned from different managers and owners along the way and put it into a book at the very end. So basically my point is, when I was working at that first shop as a general manager, I worked for a guy that was kind of like a slumlord. And he had 12 apartment buildings, and he had the pizza shop. And he was the type of guy that when somebody would come for a bill, he would say, "Hey, Nick, go out there and talk to him." I'd go talk to him. He'd hop in his car and just drive away. And that's the type of guy he was. But at the same time, he was the same guy that opened up all his books. And he said, "This is what a dumpster costs. This is what it costs for the light bill. This is what it costs for the pizza. And here's how you figure out labor costs. Here's how you figure out food costs." So at that young age, I realized that it was a business. It was much more than selling pizzas and much more than just a team atmosphere place or it wasn't quite a sports team. It was a real business, So that's where I learned that. And I learned a little bit from everybody. So if you fast forward, then he basically went out of business after he got the kiss of death. Some people do, some people don't when they buy that second store. He bought the second store, got a kiss of death. And he said, "Hey, Nick, I'm going to have to let you go because we're going to close both stores." And I became a general manager at Papa John's. And through Papa John's, I learned how to build sales. I ended up with Domino's, and I was with Domino's for a long time, and to about 27. And you get a lot of pressures in the restaurant business about not having a real job. I think you hear that so often, that you don't have a real job. And as my kids got older and our marriage got more in depth and we were married longer, you just hear that from family and friends that you really don't have a real job. So I went ahead and I tried to get out of the pizza business, and I was selling radio advertising, and I just hated it, absolutely hated it. And I went back delivering pizzas 2 days a week. And then before you know it, is 5, 6, 7 days a week, 80 hours a week. I was delivering at 3 different pizza shops, bought a $180,000 house delivering pizzas. Showed all my tips, showed everything, bought the house. This is back 2009. And I still was hearing, those things that I needed to go ahead and get a real job. I kept hearing that. Now, earlier at Papa John's and Domino's, I had great success. I took stores from 3,000 to 12,000, 15,000 to 25,000. I could tell you on and on different sales and marketing things and how that came about and different things that I learned. But I became the sales fixer, and I learned at a very young age that sales fix is everything. So this is my background, that I'm this sales building marketing guy. Like that's my niche, and a team builder. But it all starts with people. I'm sure you hear that all the time. So then to fast forward all that, I'm delivering these 3 jobs, still hearing about getting a real job. So I go and I take the post office test, and I passed. 2009, I become a mailman, and I learned real quickly that that's where dreams go to die. I walked in and everybody's there 30, 40 years. They're going to count on their retirement when they walk out the door. And I was like, this is not for me. This is where dreams go to die. But I put in 4 years there. I was delivering at those 3 pizza shops while I worked full-time at the post office. Guy at the post office said, hey, you seem reliable. Would you like to count money at the Civic Arena where the Penguins play at night? So I said, yes. So I had 5 jobs for the next 3 years, 90 to 100 hours a week. And just trying to grind. Before it was cool to grind. I mean, I just worked my butt off, and I always wanted my own pizza shop. I got into a lot of reading when I took over the Papa John's. Eventually, what happened was that Papa John said, "Hey, we know your history. We'd like you to run this store." And I said, "Well, I can't work 80, 90 hours a week because I'm working full time at the post office. But I thought maybe I could go down to 2 jobs instead of 5." So I took over running the Papa John's, and I realized that it was a college store, and they had never hit $1 million. They'd been there 22 years. Their profits were $27,000. And 1 year I took them to $147,000 in profits and over $1 million in sales. I had a lot of young guys that worked for me that went to college, and I would try to schedule them on the weekend. And they say, hey, we need to be off because we got to study and read books. And I realized that's what I missed in college was reading books. So I just started to read everything. If I want to learn how to negotiate, I read 6 months of negotiating books. If I want to learn about self-finance, I read 6 months of self-finance books. If I want to learn about anything, I just kept reading and reading and reading. I for some reason, kept coming across, how in a book, they'll go ahead and have another book like, hey, this book was, a good book to read, or I got some information out of this book. And it was Think and Grow Rich. And every time I land on that book, yep, right back there in there, right?
Somewhere here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's on that shelf, right?
Yep. So when I landed on it, I read it, and I probably have read it 12 to 15 times now. And that's when I realized, I was like, you know what? I have no idea how I'm going to go from a guy with, basically no money. I've got a house, I'm paying the mortgage. We go on vacation. That means I got to work double when I come back. It's not like, I'm paycheck to paycheck, but I'm, we're living in middle-class family, but I'm working my butt off. And I just said, okay, I'm going to listen to the book and put it aside and not worry about how I'm going to come up with the money to buy my pizza shop. But I'm buying my own pizza shop. That's it. I'm doing it. So I started walking into stores in the city of Pittsburgh, like right around the University of Pitt, because I knew if we're going to have a shop, we need to be down by the college town so we could be busy. And I'd walk in and I'd say, sell me your pizza shop. And they'd say, get the hell out of here. And the 5th guy said, I have a pizza shop for sale over across the bridge. My buddy has a shop. I walked in. I was like, oh, shit, it's a full bar. And, 150 seats in it. And I walked in the back and full pizza kitchen, all I needed. We sat down. He told me the price, $185,000. I said, I wanted to buy it. He said, how are you going to pay me? And I said, well, you tell me how I'm going to pay you. I told him my history and everything I've done and all the hours I worked. And he said, well, save up what you can running it. We'll keep it my name for 9 months. And then at the end of the 9 months, you can give me everything you've earned, and I'll finance you over the next 5 years. And I have bought 4 out of 5 stores with little to no money down.
That is an unbelievable story. And there's so many key learnings here, Jaime. I'm sure you're making mental notes of everything that Nick said, but let's start with, I love the fact that you learned on somebody else's dime, Papa John's and Domino's, 2 of the leading brands in pizza, arguably. I mean, no one can dispute that. I mean, what you learned there is invaluable because you didn't just have a dream. And so many people have a dream. I want to start a restaurant. They don't know the first thing about it. And then the second key that you said was it's a business. People go into the restaurant business thinking, oh, I'm running a restaurant. No, you're running a business. People that run restaurants go out of business really quickly.
Sure.
So I think that's beautiful. Jaime, what do you got?
Man, dude, I was writing a whole bunch of stuff down because there's a ton to unpack there.
Yeah.
Starting with the overnight success, 8 years in the making, right? That's part of it. I really, really like the phrase "sponged off of other people," off of the role models. So if you're listening to this and you haven't done that in your life yet, that's an excellent idea to take what you can from every situation, whether you like the guy, don't like the guy. Everybody's got something to teach you and to learn. So that was great. I do want to hear more about the book coming soon. So let's make sure we come back to that, because to take what you learn and put it into a book is no short undertaking, and so forth. And I wrote down the phrase sales fixer and team builder. And so we want to talk about those 2 things for sure. because where we're sitting right now, there is 0 people in the country who are not interested in the sales fixing part, like how to increase sales, like what can you do, like if you know. And I'm sure you're going to come from a mindset of creative. I'm just that's what I'm guessing, and so there's a lot there. Raj, where do you want to take it next?
Well, the profit margin he talked about was pretty incredible story because, you know, when he took over that store that had like a $27,000 profit, it never hit $1 million in sales. And suddenly, you know, you boost that to over 100,000 in profit. I mean, there's some key learnings there because obviously you're focused on the numbers. You were focused on putting systems in place. You talked about food costs. You talked about labor costs. You talked about inventory. These are so many critical things that so many operators out there don't do, or they're afraid to do, or they don't have time to do, and at their peril, right, Nick? I mean, these are foundational elements of your business that you learned a long time ago, and now you obviously have a very healthy profit margin.
You know, what we do in my business here, what I do is every single Monday at 8:00, we hop on a phone call with all the general managers and my regional chef, who's basically like my regional supervisor. And sometimes we'll bring on our marketing director, sometimes we'll bring on our beverage director, and sometimes we'll bring on our office manager. So every Monday, it's the upper echelons of our managers meet at 8:00. And what that meeting is we have a chart that my office manager pulls and puts together from all the stores for the previous week that has everything on it, from how many orders we had last year, how many orders we took this year, ticket average, food costs, labor costs, how many voids are on there, how many discounts are on there. I mean, there's probably about 30 different things that are on this chart. And then we just go at it for 45 minutes on, you know, I go over the chart for a good 20 minutes, pick out a bunch of different things, talk about it. Then each manager gets like a 5-minute rebuttal of, hey, this is what happened in our shop last week. These are our needs. These are our you know, desires, where we are on staff. And this is, you know, let me explain some of these numbers. And this is, you know, our cost of goods might have looked high this week, but, you know, we had a slower Sunday, so we know we're going to order less of this coming up this week. It should bounce back. Like a lot of different communicating about the numbers. But I think what I've done really well is taught what these numbers mean to our managers and how to find the numbers, how to really break down and get a labor cost, how to really break down and get a cost of goods or a food cost. And I think that's where I've made a lot of headway. And back when I did the Papa John's, and you know, sometimes there's low-hanging fruit in a restaurant too. And I think that's where a lot of consultants can come in and they can kind of look around at a shop that's never, ever done anything as far as, you know, they've never even counted inventory. And they're like, oh, well, I can make this guy more money real quick because I'm going to show him how much extra cheese he's putting on his pizzas, or how much, you know, whatever it may be extra that they're putting on the products. Or they say, you know, why do they have everybody coming in at 3:00 at a restaurant and they're not getting a rush till 5:00? Like they can cut out that easy labor. So I think there's a lot of times, like if you're not really paying attention to the little things that you know, pennies really do add up to dimes, nickels, you know, nickels, dimes, quarters, dollars,
yes,
and hundreds, thousands of dollars, especially in a restaurant. I think that's what you have to look at. You have to like stop and just go back to, you know, the costs are so important. That food cost and labor cost to me is just about everything in a business. And if you have a guy that, you know, their labor cost is over 6% that week, you know, and your profit margin is 10%, that means you made 4% instead of 10%. You know, that's how that percent doesn't come from anywhere else. It comes right off of your profit margin. And I think that's what a lot of restaurateurs need to really see. Maybe ones that you're, like you said, that they're thinking they're running a restaurant, not running a business.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with anything you just said. It's all spot on for sure.
You know, Roger, one thing that I wanted to pick up for folks is, you know, Nick obviously running 5 stores. Mm-hmm. And so having a meeting with 5 people, and that sounds big, like that, you know, it sounds like a big undertaking. Forget about that for a second. If you still have one store, take exactly what he's doing and doing with the people in your one store, and have your meeting and have your key people and talk about all the same things. And in this case, he talked about having 30 metrics to go through, which is fantastic. Don't think because you're small, you can't start putting these things in place. I mean, because you can't exist with 2, 3, 4 stores if you're not doing this. So start doing it now if you do have a vision to expand. And I love the fact that you're teaching your folks to understand the numbers themselves. A lot of owners, and I've talked with Roger about this before, open book management philosophy. they want to keep that shit secret. Like they don't want the other folks to know the recipe of how I make money. No, it's completely the opposite. If you want your staff and your people to be vested in your success, like you need to teach them where the dollars and the pennies and all that stuff goes. And so whether it's an exercise of taking $100 and showing how that $100 disappears so quickly, and sometimes there's 55 cents left if you're not careful, like then they start to really get it. So that philosophy also is going to help you grow, because those people, maybe that dude opens your next store and all of a sudden you're at 10 stores with everybody knowing what the heck's going on. So those are some real big things that anybody can take and operate with.
Totally get that. That leads to the next topic of discussion, how you motivate your team. And obviously you got key managers in the different stores, and you got a regional guy, the supervisor you talked about. Are they all incentivized in some way? And are they empowered to make critical decisions when you're not there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to go back real quick to a great point Jamie made of, you can do this if you have one store. Keep in mind that I had one store. I didn't just walk in and buy 5 stores. So we had no systems when we started. That's where I do think Papa John's and Domino's helped me a lot is, I was used to systems. So sure, I've used some systems that I used there before, but a lot of them, we created our new systems. And that's what I would tell a guy with one store is, yes, go out and figure out some systems that work for you. And the meetings are so important. If you're not a person that really likes meetings, they're so important. I would challenge you to go out and start having meetings. And I'll give you one quick tip, and then we can move on about the meetings is don't just say, we're going to have meetings, and then when do you have your meetings? You have them when you have problems. Put a time, a place in that are set in stone. 8:00 Mondays on the phone, period. Doesn't matter if you're on vacation, not on vacation. Like that's our time for, we're never moving it. It's set in stone. We have all our managers, 35 of them, the first Tuesday of every month at 1:00, doesn't move. Third Tuesday of every month is all our upper managers, AMs, GMs, and all the bar managers. Second Tuesday of third Tuesday of every month. So it's the first Tuesday of every month, third Tuesday of every month, and every single Monday at 8:00. For a long time, we would just pick and choose a meeting. Okay, we need to have a meeting right now. The health department was in. Oh my God, we got to have a meeting. So we pick a day and have a meeting. And then it's like, we won't have another meeting for 6 weeks. Like, I thought I was doing everything right because we were having meetings, but you have to have them set in stone. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick too.
All right, let's talk about motivating your team and how you incentivize them.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing that everybody asks in the restaurant business, for the most part, it might be a little different with COVID, but I still think it's a big thing, is how do you hire? How do you keep people? How do you hire is really, how do you find people? That's what everybody says. So I try to take a backwards approach to it. How do we find people? I throw that out and I say, how do we keep our employees? That's what's more important. Retention to me is more important than hiring. You can try and do different hirings, Craigslist and Facebook and, different things that, hey, we'll give you $100 if you get somebody to come in and get a job and all those little things. I mean, there's really nothing new on the hiring, the onboarding and all that's so important, but how do you keep them? So that's what you're asking about. How do we incentivize our employees? We do a lot of different things. We do things like pre-COVID, giant Christmas parties, giant, like extravagant. We rent out a giant, it's called the Gateway Clipper. It's like a giant boat right on the river. We have a giant Christmas party on there. Now, before that, when we were one store, we had it in the bowling alley. But it was all the booze, all the food that we paid for. We had a big party. Then we went ahead and had a summer party every year. And the Christmas party was like for you and a guest. The summer party was for your family. We rented out like those big jumpy bouncy houses and a band and brought beer. And then I did all the cooking, fried chicken, and I'd bring our fryers there or grill, and we'd cook burgers, dogs, fried chicken. And then we'd have a big summer party. And we had that when we had one store, and we had that when we've had 5 stores. So we've grown to, big giant parties, but they look forward to that. And then I realized, along the way somewhere, that just wasn't quite enough. So we created things like, the old-fashioned employee of the month, where, people in the restaurant business might think, oh, that's just a joke. It'd be going to McDonald's and see, restaurant of the month or employee of the month. But people like that. They like to feel recognized. They like to feel valued. Absolutely. So, we give them a $50 gift card to Amazon. We go ahead and put their picture up. We put them on social media if they like that. And then we do a manager of the month. We give them an extra paid vacation day off. We give them $100 gift card for Amazon, and they get a shirt. They're a part of the Caliente Wolf Pack, and they get a shirt. And then for anyone who's every year that they're there, they get another shirt that's a special shirt that's years of service on the sleeve. It says right there, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. We do have one employee who's been with me the whole time, 8 years. We have a lot of 6s, a lot of 7s, a lot of 5s, and a slew of 3 and 4s, tons. But we have these shirts that they wear. They get on their anniversary date. Then it's still like, okay, well, how do you compete when you're maybe paying 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour, and then you're trying to figure out how do you run your labor costs, and then how do you figure that out? And a lot of times people leave you for a quarter, or they'll leave you for 50 cents. So what can I offer so that the managers don't leave? And we came up with a bonus system. And bonus systems, the worst thing about a bonus system is if you make it hard enough that they can never get it. That's the worst thing. You have to set it so that they actually can achieve the bonus, but you also want to set it so that you're making out on it too, that it's not coming out from your pocket, that when you pay out these bonuses, that you're still able to say, hey, we did well enough that they earned this bonus. So we set up a bonus system, and for the first year, nobody hit it. Now, we tweaked it a little bit because I was trying to make it a little bit easier for them to hit, but at the same time, the numbers were so off that they weren't hitting it. So I felt like rather than making everything easier, I needed to teach more. So that's where I really got down. I was like, look, this is why you're 2% off on your labor. Let's look at your schedule. Let's look at why you have 5 people at 4 o'clock when you could have 2 people at 4 o'clock. Let's look at why you have an extra prep cook on a Monday when you really should have that extra prep cook maybe on a Thursday going into the weekend, and different things, and like really helping them understand how they can cut their labor. Let's look at food costs. We don't have scales in the restaurants. I think if we get scales in the restaurants, we could really try and figure out, a better food cost. And then we would, okay, let's everybody use scales. Wow, we shaved 2 points off our food cost by using scales. And then before you know it, I'm paying $30,000 every quarter out on bonuses. And the thing is I did it pretty much that I set the goal, said 30% is our cost of goods. And I realized our real cost of goods, if they ran everything right with scales, is about 28%. So I said, okay, anything between 28 and 30% is yours. And labor costs, I set it at what I felt like the stores could run on. With a full restaurant, we run really tight labors, anywhere from 22 to 24%, and depends on the size of the restaurant. And anything under that, I give right back to them, because I'm profitable and make what I want to make at 24% or at the 22, depends on the restaurant. And everything underneath I give to them. Now they can. The other thing they're kind of throwing as an extra bonus is their sales. If anything, they're positive over the year before, I give them 10% of the sales. So if they're up $10,000 for the week, they earned $1,000 on their bonus. If they're up $1,000, they earned $100 for their bonus. And we do take negatives. If they're negative on sales, it comes off. If they're over on the food costs, it comes off. So we have. We've really worked with these stores to make sure that they're positive. And, I know at some point you're going to ask me about COVID. When we went into COVID, I told them, I said, I don't know what's going to happen with the bonuses. I'm expecting that we're not going to pay them out, that we're not going to be positive, but I want you guys I need you to be harder on the costs than you've ever been. We've been training for this. So we had really that March 15th, we had an 11 o'clock meeting at night because we already had all the systems in place to have meetings. And on top of all the meetings, we have Group Me, which is like a what's up. We have a bunch of different ones. All the managers on one, the whole entire store on one, and we were able to, the whole entire company on one. So we were able to just tell everybody like, hey, this is when we're going to have a meeting. We talked a lot about the cost of goods and labor costs and keeping them low during COVID. And as you kind of mentioned in the very beginning, the pizza industry did great during COVID. So these guys got great bonuses for the second quarter. It's kind of tapered off now that everybody's gotten open again or somewhat open. So, they're working towards different kind of goals for the third quarter, but that's what I do to incentivize them. I try to keep it interesting. We try to make sure that we're thanking people for what they do. I also try to teach my guys how to appreciate them. And I think another thing just to throw out there is I try to fix everything. So equipment wise. So if we have broken coolers, or if you have broken sinks or whatever it is, when you don't fix stuff like that, your employees feel like you don't care about them. So if you've got a sink that's been leaking for 6 months and every night they got to bend down and clean up that mess before they go home, they think that you don't care about them. They think all you care about is the money and not fixing the sink. If you've got a fryer that leaks grease on the floor every night and you don't fix the fryer buy a new fryer for $800, they think you don't care about them. So, you asked about decision making. We have a list of every single person that fixes every single thing at the store. And the managers know all they have to do is call that number. Hey, we've got a leaky sink. Jeff the plumber, can you come in? Yep, I'll be there tomorrow. They send me a text. Nick, Jeff's coming tomorrow to fix the sink, just so you know. Cool. Anything over $500, they let me know about it. Anything under $500, they just get it fixed. But yeah, that kind of sums up what you were asking.
Hey, Rod. So I just want to jump in because of this particular point. What you did not get was a simple answer of we give $50 gift cards twice a year to our people and they love it. Like that. Like you could imagine a place saying that's what we do. But Nick just rolled through bullet after bullet of things that will keep people, motivated to be on his team for now and the future. I mean, from the parties to the improvements, to the shirts, to the bonus system, and not just the basic bonuses, something that had tiers, that had checkpoints. And when it has all those little details, to the point we've already talked about, he's taught them how to achieve those goals inside of it. So very powerful system there. One thing I want to get to, Raj, if you want to stay on the incentive stuff, feel free. But I definitely am curious because you both can speak to this. Beer is part of the pizza business. I want to get into that, but do you want to talk about that for a sec, Roger? Or do you want to talk about people more? Because Roger is fanatical about people, and he could go on. So I don't want to steal your thunder, Raj.
Well, let's hold on to the beer topic because it's definitely something that I wanted to bring into this discussion. I also want to talk about, what happened when COVID first hit. Did things slow down? Where are you at now? Are you finding there's less competition out there? Are you an indoor seating place? Has it always been a fast casual, takeout place? How is that affecting you? And then clearly, we want to talk about the additional profits that come from having a bar. And it's probably, maybe it's even beyond the draft house. I mean, I'd like to ask you, are you serving hard alcohol as well? I mean, we can go down so many different roads. What do you think, James? I want to talk about staff training too, not just the management piece. It's like, obviously, how you motivate and how your customer service experiences, equate to online reviews and word of mouth and increased business and loyal customers and all that. This is all huge stuff. Why don't we talk about that next?
So
yeah,
I guess
you gave a lot there. So yeah,
I did. Let's talk about the staff, like the service team in your restaurants, and and what you do that's special, and any special training, and how those people are empowered to make friends for Caliente every day that you're open. All that sort of stuff is really important.
Okay, yeah, I think the staff training is a good one, and I think bringing it back to a great point Jamie made is about when you have one store compared to somebody like listening to me with 5 stores, like. All this stuff that I'm talking about, like that I went through with the employee incentives, we added this stuff when we're looking around like, why can't we keep people? And same thing like with the training. Nobody wants to work at a place where they don't feel like they were trained. A lot of times you hear parents say like their kids want discipline. Like it's the same thing because it's part of the process. So how do you train your staff? That's a great question. And what we did was we have a 20-point basically a sheet, 20 to 30 points that says everything that you need to be trained for every single position. A hostess, a server, a bartender, a cook, shift manager, kitchen manager, assistant manager, general manager. Everybody has a checklist, and it gets more entailed as you go up to general manager. They're writing essays on, how to save costs and everything else. And I mean, for somebody just coming into the store who wants to be, say, a bartender, there's different questions on there. And we won, we're 3-time world pizza champions. And back in 2016, we won our first championship for a pizza called the Quack Attack. So, what I noticed one day on a review was somebody said they came in, they asked the server what a Quack Attack was. They had no idea. Meanwhile, we're out there marketing this thing like crazy. And I said, what the heck? Like, how wouldn't they know that? And it turns out it was somebody who's been there for 2 weeks, so Another big thing is I never blame the person. I always blame myself, always. And believe me, it is difficult. Sometimes you're like, I just can't blame myself on this one. But then that's when you got to take a walk for an hour and take a deep breath. And you're like, yep, I see where I went wrong, even though I don't want to admit it. And I said, you know what, we're just not training them the right way. So on that training sheet with 20 points, it starts with things like, we give them a tour of the store when they start. So there's things like, do they know what the employee discount is? Do they, that was another thing. Everybody gets 50% off. That's, I guess, another incentive, but that's a given. So whether they're working or not. And then it's like, do they know what the employee discount is? Do they know where we keep the beer? Do they know where everything? How can they take a phone order? Can they do they know the uniform policy? All these different things are on this training packet. Another thing on there is, can they explain what a quack attack is? I said, after that, I said, we need a training packet. We need to put something on there like, what is the quack attack? Because if they can't explain it to the customer, we look foolish. So all these different training packets is what we have. And, do you have a mission statement? Don't you have a mission statement? I would say for 5 years, we didn't have a mission statement. Now it's very simple, to smile, go above and beyond and smile and exceed the customer's expectations. Smile is right in there. So you're asking about do we do anything different for the customer? We talk about smiling because I think when you go into a restaurant, you see people smiling, it goes a long way. We work a lot with the hostess. The hostess training packet has a lot of different things. It's all about greeting the customer is all on there. Have they been trained to greet the customer, to get their name, to, say please and thank you, and to give a quote real times, that's all these big things. And I think all the staff training is what's real important. So it's not, hey, this is Joe and you're going to work with Joe tonight. And the next night it's, hey, you're going to work with Sam tonight. And, and then you learn all Joe's bad habits. You'll learn all Sam's bad habits. Is no, here's your training packet for the next week. Carry this around. We're going to show you everything. And the store tour that I mentioned, I've been preaching about store tours. And I have one manager that just gave great store tours. So one of these big giant 35 manager meetings, I said to him, all right, we're at, his name's also Nick. I said, we're at Nick's store. He said, Nick, give everybody the tour. So we're going on a field trip. And he took us all around. Here's where the dumpster is. This is where the bathroom is. This is where you hang your clothes. And gave everybody, this is our onboarding process. This is how we onboard people. And when they get onboarded like that, and, don't just give them their paperwork to fill out and disappear. Sit down and fill their paperwork with them. Hey, do you have any questions on your paperwork? Where can I help you on it? Oh, you don't know how to fill a W-2 out? Do you have dependents? Don't you have dependents? You just leave people to figure that stuff out on their own. You have a really hard time keeping people. And it all goes back to, we put so much money into hiring people, but how do we actually keep them? And all this training and everything we're talking about staff, it's all goes back to retention.
Wow. Unbelievable nuggets on Jaime. I mean, this is just so powerful for every operator out there. Just a wealth of experience and knowledge and experience. And, this is common sense stuff that is missed by so many operators. The philosophy, the approach, the way you treat your people is how your people treat the customer. It's all, wow. It just goes from there. Killer stuff. Thank you, Nick, for sharing all that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I've interviewed Roger countless times for my audience of restaurant folks out there, and I know he believes in a lot of the same stuff that you're talking about when he would train his staff. It's all about product knowledge. It's about having the ability to upsell, and you can't do that unless you're comfortable knowing the story behind your restaurant, what's different about your restaurant, what's different about your offerings, having favorites to talk about. And I interviewed Roger yesterday for something else, and the whole answer of I don't know comes up. If that and it sounded like that came up on your quack attack story, I don't know should not come out of the mouth of your servers because right. You've done something wrong along the chain, and you've identified that. So you guys are doing a lot of things right. For 2 seconds, I jumped out to the website for you guys, and one of the things I love at the bottom of the website, just because you're talking about people, is they got a great shot of, I don't know, this 20 people here. They're all happy. They're all smiling. You can see their team. They're happy to be that. And I give restaurants a hard time on their websites when they don't show people. You are a people business. You're a team. You want two things when you do that. One, me, if I was a customer, I go, oh man, these guys look cool. I want to support them. But two, if I was looking for a job, I'd be like, oh, that kind of looks like a good place to go work versus the other one. I swear to God, there's so many damn websites I used to do critiques of them. One was there was no people, right? There's nobody to contact. Two was the worst one is that on their homepage, there'd be no phone number or address or no way to find them. I'd be like, hello, but anyway. So I didn't dig into all the pieces of the website, but I like that part where you show the people, show who you are. It does say World Champions Pizza right on the homepage, right. And Roger would love that as a branding call, as a right away something you can talk about. They sit down. Hey, did you know we're World Pizza Champs 3 years in a row? You know that our pizzas are going to be good. Which one do you want? So you got to have that differentiation stuff. So a lot of stuff there.
They also were named Best Pizza in America in 2019, James, for a pie called the Meemaw. Tell us about the Meemaw and how this all came about.
Sure. So my regional chef, who's on the team with us, he is fantastic. He's been a good friend of mine for years and years. I guess the story goes, as I talk about working at Papa John's and Domino's, a lot of stuff comes in bags, their sauce or cans, So I wasn't a recipe guy. I knew after 17 years in the business what a good pizza tasted like, but I can't say that I was this chef. I was a marketer, a people person, a systems guy, and I would call my good friend up, Eric, who ran a white tablecloth restaurant, and I would say, okay, I've got my dough recipe pretty much figured out. What order do I put it in? Being a master baker, he would tell me this is how it goes in the mixer in this order. And then I would say things like, okay, I like a signature wing sauce, and he would help me with the signature wing sauce and all these different things. And then fast forward to when this is 2012, and then 2014, I went to the International Pizza Expo in Las Vegas, and I saw these competitions out there, and they were like, I was a little kid in a candy shop. If you've never been there, I suggest it for anyone in the pizza industry. It's 9 football fields full of everything related to pizza. And one of the things they have is tons of competitions. And when I saw these culinary competitions, I was like, I couldn't win one of these, but I know who could. So I also just read a book. I was on I went to the expo, and then I went on vacation right after for a week. So I took 2 weeks off, probably the first time since I bought the restaurant. And I read a book called The Entrepreneurial Rollercoaster by Darren Hardy. And Darren talked a lot about how you should hire people that you can't afford, because eventually you can't afford not to have them. And that, they'll bring you more money by hiring them than you would if you don't. Don't think of what their salary is what you intentionally have to pay them forever, and they're not going to earn it. You need to have A players. So between that and seeing these competitions, I was like, I got to bring Eric on somehow, and we had 2 stores at that time. And I had him over for shish kebabs with his whole family, which wasn't weird because I'm the godfather to his daughter. But what was weird is I pitched him on joining Caliente. And he looked at me like I was crazy, and he's like, I'm a white tablecloth, fine dining chef. Like, why would I want to do pizzas? And, I told him, I was like, look, you've been there 7 years, and I can't pay you what you're worth, but they're not paying you what you're worth. And I can pay you what they're paying you. I said, and as we grow, I was like, I'll be able to pay you more. And I laid out everything that I wanted them to do. It wasn't just about winning championships. It was about, helping us with the inventory and helping us with the vendors and helping us get better product in and instructions and menu guides of how to make everything. We have menu guides now to make everything from a pepperoni pizza all the way to, every single pizza on the menu. Like, it's like a book that's 3 inches thick to how to make every single thing. And then we took this and we put it on all the walls. So everybody, a new guy can walk in and make a pepperoni pizza and knows that 48 pepperonis go on a pizza. And Eric went ahead, called me a couple of days later, said, I'm going to join you. Just tell you what kind of guy he is. He gave his job. He's been there 7 years, a 3-month notice, not a 2-week notice, but 3 months. And, probably 2 months in, I'm like, is he really going to come work for me? Like, no way. But June 1st, 2014, I guess it was, 2015 rather, he joined me. And I'm real big into writing your goals down, like huge, believe in power of the pen. So we wrote down from day one, and one of the goals on there was to win a championship and win a world championship. And when we went out to Vegas in 2016, he won the best pan pizza in the world with the Quack Attack that I had mentioned earlier. And amazing pizza. It's got truffle oil on it, and wow. It's just unbelievable. Seared duck, pan seared. It's just like unbelievable. Then he created a culture among us that these guys wanted to be champions and compete. So I had a guy he learned how to stretch pizza like so good. And he went out in 2017, he won the world championship for the world's largest pizza stretch. And then in 2018, Eric went out and he won the championship for the best non-traditional pizza. He put Wagyu beef on a pizza, if you can imagine that one. And it wasn't just put Wagyu beef on it. You guys can understand when I'm talking to fine dining chef, like it was, exactly, it all, 1,000 ingredients. I always tell him, I say, when he tells me what he's going to make, when he loses me on these ingredients, I'm like, you're on the right track. When I have no idea what he's talking about, I'm like, sounds great. And after that, there's a team called the World Pizza Champions, and it's got a few founders. Tony Giammanani is one of them. He's 13-time World Pizza Champion. If you've ever seen anybody throwing pizzas on TVs, it probably was Tony on the late night shows. And he had asked us to I met Tony a few years earlier. He was at our restaurant at Caliente back when we first opened, and on a book tour of his. And he had asked Eric and I to join the World Pizza Champions in 2018. And from doing that, we have traveled to Italy a few times, London, competing. And when we were in Italy, Eric, pretty much we started in Rome and we went to Parma, which is about 7 hours north. We went on a bus and we stopped at a lot of different small towns in between there. And he pillaged all the different little shops in Italy for all these ingredients for the meatball, rapini and different cheeses and all these different sauces. And then when he got there, he made this great pan pizza. And out of all the Americans competing and all the American pizzas, his finished number one. So he got named the best pizza in America as voted on in Italy for 2019. And that was the Mima.
That's amazing.
Spinach and porchetta. This porchetta that we got from San Giammano, it was unbelievable. It was like I don't know, just an unbelievable experience. We're there. The girl's probably like 19, speaking like broken English, Italian girl. She's cutting this porchetta with a butcher knife. The porchetta is like 2 inches thick, throws it on Italian bread, and we're eating it like, oh my God, this is so good. And that's what he put on his pizza, and he won.
Nice.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's marketing, that's branding, that's the power of ingenuity, and that's passion, really. That really comes down to passion, not just for business, but for pizza itself, because there's such a history of pizza, and very few people understand what that history is. It's a proud tradition. In Italy, of course, it's passed down from generation and generation. And you mentioned the funny thing about what you said earlier, Nick, about get a real job. In pizza, pizza is revered in Italy, and pizza makers, pizzaiolos, are revered, especially if they were part of a traditional family that passed that skill set down. And owning a pizza shop, it's like you're a CEO of a corporation in America. If that's you in Italy, it's really that powerful.
Yeah, it really is. We went to Naples last year, home of the Neapolitan pie. And
exactly.
It was unbelievable. We went to this thing called Pizza Village, and it was about 80 pizza vendors outside right next to the ocean. And you would go at night, and it was like a rock concert. I mean, there was a band up there that was playing all this music. There was probably 5,000 to 10,000 people in the stands, or in the lawn, just enjoying the concert. These giant lights overhead going crazy. And then every booth had their own Neapolitan wood-fired oven, and they were serving a cheese, like a margarita pizza, and then some kind of special pizza that they made. And these pizzas were unbelievable. And from that, I always, in the pizza business, grew up Papa John's, Domino's, so it was a conveyor oven. And these competitions and stuff, I would cook on some of these wood-fired ovens. And I think, from your experience, you'll appreciate this. When I was in Naples, I was like, I need a wood-fired oven. So for my camp up about an hour and a half north of my house, back in June, I bought a Mariforna wood-fired oven, and it is just unbelievable. So I have been cooking Neapolitan pizzas all summer long when I get some time to get away, and they're just fantastic. But you're right. You go over to Italy, and those pizza guys, they are like royalty over there, and they're very well known. They have schools, and those competitions in Italy are cutthroat. They really, really are cutthroat. Tony, that I mentioned, is one of the very few Americans that's ever won the whole entire competition, not just Best American, but the whole entire competition, because it really, I don't want to say they're prejudiced to the Italians, but they are. So that's kind of how those competitions are, but they're really, really tough. You get a translator and everything. And I mean, it is just, there's about 1,000 people, at least maybe 2,000 people at these competitions. They're just intense over in Italy. They're crazy.
That's beautiful. That's the passion right there. That's the heritage and the passion of the pie.
Absolutely.
Jaime, you wanted to talk about the bar. Why don't we dive into that? What specific areas do you want to focus on, Jaime?
Oh, just real quick, because I know you like to target about an hour for your episodes or less. But so just keep that part real quick. I just wanted to highlight. I mean, beer and pizza, boom, go together. No, not telling any stories. How do you guys make the beer part of it different?
So, I'm a pizza guy through and through. You guys introduced me that way. You heard the story. I am a pizza guy. You also heard that I came in and saw the bar and said, oh, shit. I didn't want the bar. A little bit backstory. In October, it'll be 15 years, no drinking for me. So it's 7 years, I when I walked in the bar, I hadn't drank alcohol in 7 years, and I don't even drink a sip, So it's like I didn't want the bar at all. And it was a blessing. I mean, a huge blessing. Oh, yeah. When anybody opens up a pizzeria, they all say the same thing. I have the best pizza. Like, that's what everybody says. I have the best pizza. I wasn't going to be that guy, and the marketing told me one thing. I learned early on having the bar that people come in for this craft beer. We're talking 2012, big boom in craft beer over the last 8 years, probably 10 years even. But people would come in and they just wanted these special kegs. If you had a beer, I remember there's a beer called Mad Elf. Trogs makes it out of Harrisburg. Comes out just for Christmas. And they only gave out so many kegs throughout the city. But if you had this keg, you'd have people sitting at your bar all weekend long till it was gone. And I was like, I need to figure out how to get these special kegs. I was like, that's what it comes down to. I was like, I'm not going to worry about the pizza part. I know we have a great product already. We did like a taste testing with all our family and friends, and we all agreed. And with Eric's help, tell me how to put the recipes together. We had a great product. So I wasn't worried about that. I hired a guy that knew the pizza business pretty well, put him in the back, and I took over the front. And I just focused on, I was like, okay, we're a restaurant, 150 seats, never ran a restaurant before. How do I do that? We learned on the fly. But the beer is what I focused on. I was like, if I can get these special kegs, I can get people in here. And back in 2012, I also learned about Facebook ads. So I was spending money on Facebook in 2012. And early. And I called up Facebook. I was like, how do I learn this? And they said, give us $1,500, which is a lot of money when you're first opening a restaurant, and we'll teach you how to do it. They did. And, I've ran Facebook ads for the last 8 years, and I would put out, about these beers that we're getting. And the process was I said, okay, I want to be not a little bar. I don't want to be a little neighborhood pizzeria. I want to be the number one craft beer bar in Pittsburgh. I want to be the number one destination pizza shop in Pittsburgh. So how do I be the number one beer destination in Pittsburgh? Beer bar. How do I do that? Well, you look at the top 5, right? And you see, what are they doing? So I started looking at the top 5, and I would see their draft list. And I try to emulate their draft list and try to get the beer that they're getting. It's a game. It's really hard to get the beer. There was one bar on there that was getting all this beer that wasn't on anybody else's draft list. I'm like, how are they doing this? Well, I found out that they're going over to Philadelphia, 5 hours away. Philadelphia might as well be in a different state. That's how far it is from Pittsburgh. So I'm figuring out they're driving to Philly, buying beer off the beer distributor, bring it back and tapping it. I call up my lawyer, and he's like, yeah, it's illegal. I was like, well, how can I do it legally? He's like, you can't. And I start thinking about it, and I call him back. I'm like, well, how can we do it legally? And he's like, I told you can't. And I was like, well, why not? And he said, well, because you can't have a license to move alcohol in Pennsylvania if you have a license for a bar. And I said, well, my wife's name is not on my license for the bar. He says, okay, we can get your wife a license to move the alcohol. And I said, bingo, there we go. So for $3,000, we bought my wife a license to move alcohol. And we were renting a Suburban from Enterprise. We drive it 5 hours over to Philly, buy $10,000 worth of beer. The ass end be dragging back the turnpike, tap this stuff, and I put all over Facebook. I remember, we did it about 3 times. The 4th time, I remember when we got back, all this beer was so good. I mean, I was researching like crazy. I didn't go home and go on SportsCenter at night from an 18-hour day. I was going on all these beer sites, and I was reading about beer. And for a guy who didn't even drink beer, I'm going on Rate Beer, Beer Advocate, finding out all this great beer. I remember when we brought the 4th truck back, and I said, I'm going to put this all over Facebook, and this is it. This is our coming out party, because when people find out we have this beer, they're going to go crazy. And I just kept loading up for the next 3 years, all this great beer. And that's how we did it in the beginning. We just got known for having, great beer. Became a craft beer weeks in Pittsburgh. We're all around Caliente. We'd have 20 to 30 events. I would go to bars in Philly and I would say, okay, this is the type of glassware we need to use because they do this in Philly. This is how we need to make our bar look because they do it in Philly. Because Philly was a great, and still is a great craft beer city. So I took a lot of things from going out there on these beer runs. My wife loved the beer, and she thinks that was a great fun part of the business, was getting to go to all these different bars out there. And we would just go and, we'd eat, we'd drink and figure out all these different things that they were doing. And we'd bring them back to Pittsburgh and saw a bar that was all painted black. And we're like, yeah, we want to paint our whole bar black. Like, we want to make it dim and just feel like you could sit there and drink for hours. And we did all these things. And then finally what happened was, to bring it full circle real quick, is this was for 3 years. Nobody talked about our pizza. This is way before Pizza Champions and all this. And what happened was there was there's a marketing tip out there for like the way to use your words. We're in a contest for the best pizza in Pittsburgh for one of the TV channels. And who won? Well, what I did was, we're on Facebook. I have all this paid Facebook. So I did paid Facebook ads. Vote for us, vote for us, vote for us. We finished third. And the first two were pizza shops that were institutions. They were there for 60 years in Pittsburgh. So I marketed us the news named us the best new pizza in Pittsburgh. And by doing that, a guy from Punxsutawney named Scott Anthony, who is a writer for Pizza Today, he came in. And he was the one that told me about Pizza Expo and everything else. And that's how, full circle, that I got more involved in going to Vegas and then bringing Eric in and winning the championships. And when we got named to the World Pizza Champions team and we're advertising our pizza, I was like, you know what? I have now come full circle. I put my ego aside, because sometimes in business you have to put your ego aside. I put my ego aside, promoted the beer so hard, and then the moment that the pizza came back around to catch up with the beer was one of the greatest feelings ever. And, I was like, yes, I am a pizza guy. It was full circle. It felt so good. And that was kind of how we worked everything. Now, for first 4 or 5 years, it was all beer related. Next couple of years, it was all pizza focused. Now we've done a really good job of promoting both together. I was like, all right, we wore the pizza. I don't want to say we wore the beer out, but we did. Then we wore the pizza out a little bit in the marketing. I said, now we can put it all together. We have a brand about championships, and we'll put a focus on our different things we do with beer and alcohol. We have full 24 taps, over 150 bottles at each store, full liquor. We have the slushies. If you want to come in and get a slushie, that was one thing we did during COVID. I was like, man, we need to add slushies, get some takeout sales going. And, it's come full circle. So we promote everything. And I think that's just kind of how it's all come together. But the beer is so important. It really is. But you have to learn about it. You have to really get down and try and figure it out. But I would suggest anyone with alcohol to get into craft beer and not just be a place. I didn't want to have Miller Lite girls showing up on Fridays, giving out free shots. I'd rather have a brewery down the street come in. This brewer with a big beard would come in and, show everybody the beer he just made this week and give them samples. Like, that was way cooler than having some girl come in from Miller Lite, So that's kind of how we build it.
Nick, you got a mug club?
We do not have a mug club because Pennsylvania has a lot of different rules on a mug club. Just about a year ago, they eased some of the restrictions, so it's on the list somewhere about a mug club. But at the moment, no, we do not.
I can help you with that. Oh, that's great. Awesome. Well, that's tremendous. Jaime, you got anything else for Nick?
Yeah, listen, two things. One, you got to schedule him again because
there's so much here, right?
So much we didn't talk about. Yeah. And just a reminder for folks, he talked about Facebook ads. And so he was in there early. If he was doing Facebook ads in 2012, he would have learned a lot when it was a lot cheaper to do than it is today, necessarily for impact. That doesn't mean if you haven't done it, don't do it. It means like you should absolutely. It's still, I think, for restaurants, the easiest way to target your local demographic. So don't even hire someone right away. Do what he did. Learn how to do it yourself. And when you know how to do it yourself, maybe you can outsource it to someone on your team or pay to have it done. But when you learn to do it right and to target the little groups and the segments and your beer specials and so forth, it really can be a powerful tool. So I thought that was a good takeaway. But yeah, I definitely want to come back and maybe in the future and visit some of the marketing stuff. maybe as he leaves us, the last thing I'd like to hear about is just how the book came about in a quick way, and then like, are the future plans 2 more stores, 5 more stores, 1 more store, 100 stores? And that's kind of the last thing I'd like to know about.
Okay, great. I can fill you in on all that. So early 2019, I came out with the Pizza Equation. It's available on Amazon. And I've always wanted to write a book. And when I sat down, there was a lady that's going to help me with the operations manual. And when she pitched me on why she should write my operations manual, she showed me the book she wrote. I was like, you wrote a book? She's like, yeah. I was like, I want to write a book. She's like, oh. I was like, why don't you help me write a book? She had no interest. She wanted to do this operations manual. But I really convinced her, like, hey, I'll do the operations manual, but I really want you to help me write a book. So I had the idea I was just going to have her ghostwrite it. So we sat down. I would talk. She'd come back and show me what she wrote. And I just, nothing against her. I just didn't like what she was coming back with. So I sat down every Thursday for an hour when the kids were in bed and the wife was in bed, and I wrote. And every Thursday, and then by the end of the year, I called the same lady back, and she said, here's the publisher I used, the editor I used. I called the editor up. She looked it over and said, yeah, you have a book. I'll put it together. And another 6 months of, her putting it together and bringing it back and asking questions. Can you expand on this and all this stuff? And when I came out with the book, it got great reviews for in the pizza industry. I've had signings wherever I sold over 1,000 books wow. in one clip.
Awesome.
I mean, it was great. I got a keynote speech at the Pizza and Pasta Expo out of the book. A lot of speaking engagements. I speak at all the international pizza expos and stuff like that, and then the Pizza and Pasta Expo. And a lot of it came out of the book. And I really enjoyed it so much. And I realized that in my niche, what kept happening was I was having people reaching out to me in the pizza industry and asking me different questions. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And I liked it so much. I felt like I wanted to give back that I started a podcast called the Business Equation Podcast. And I really think that the stuff that we do in restaurants and the stuff that we do in the pizzeria can be transformed into small businesses everywhere. I really believe that business is business, and I believe that. So I have really, I'm on episode 60 already of my own podcast. And in the beginning, it was the first 25 was just myself giving 20-minute tips about a lot of things. I expand on a lot of things that we're talking about. Then I realized that, with a podcast, you need to have different people on and other people to network and promote it. So I've been bringing a lot of different guests on a lot of different industries. And I just really have enjoyed that, and that's kind of the way that I've been going. And to answer the question on Caliente and how many stores do we see, we had a 6th store that was going to be open in April. So when COVID rolled up in March 15th, I had this deal on the table where I had probably about $20,000 sitting in hand money and on certain equipment and a little bit of advertising and stuff. And, I had the contract all the way till July. So I just kept planning out. I was like, man, it was going to be the biggest one with the highest rent. It was going to be 7,000 square feet. The rent was about almost 3,000 more than the one that we have right now. So it was the highest rent out of all of them. And you can tell from talking to me, I'm a go-getter. I'm a risk taker. I go. It killed me to squash this deal, but I just couldn't do it. There's so much uncertainty during COVID that I just couldn't do it. I said, am I making excuses for myself? Am I being chicken? You ask about decisions, and I try to always just make a decision, whether it's right or wrong. The worst thing I think you could do is not make a decision. And for 3 months, I didn't make a decision on this. I mean, it was down to where the guy called me. I was like, look, what do you want to do? Like, I need to know. And I said, well, if you give me more time, I'll do it, but I'll do it when we're done with COVID. And he was like, well, I'm going to probably try and reopen if you're not going to do it. I just need to know. So I told him, I said, all right, we're not going to open, and you can have the hand money. And he said, I'll even, gentleman's agreement that if COVID goes away and you want to open it up, I'll take the hand money off the next price. And I said, good enough. And, we walked away from the 6th store, and man, it's still, I said to my lawyer, I said, I just don't know if I made a good decision. And, lawyers are always to the point. I think you know that, right? And he just says to me, it's not about a good or bad decision. You made a decision, and that's the way I've been able to live with it. So what I've been doing with COVID, right now with my team, because, talking about motivating your employees, how do you go back and tell them that, a lot of things that one of the ways I motivate them on is like, this is career opportunity. We're going to open so many stores that you could be a cook today and a general manager in 3 years. Like we're going to build opportunity here and open more stores. So how do you go back and tell them that you didn't open a store when you said you were going to, this is what I told them. I said, look, we're going back to the gym right now. We're going to work on making sure all our procedures and operations are strong. So when we get out of this, we can open up quicker. And we're going to work on building our middle managers up to upper managers. We're going to work really hard on them, because just like in, different times in a long history, 1987 when Wall Street crashed, and then millionaires were made in the 90s, and 2008 with the housing markets, and investing millionaires have been made afterwards. Like, I believe that restaurateurs right now are in the greatest time in history, because what's going to happen is this is going to go on as everyone's seeing. I knew it wasn't going to be 6 weeks of quarantine and then life's, happy again. Yeah. This could be, I believe, is going to go on for another 2 years at least. And when we come out of this, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of restaurants that didn't make it. And real estate will be cheap. Restaurants are going to be cheap. Equipment will be cheap. There's going to be so many opportunities. So I believe we're standing at a great time for restaurants if you're in that position. And if you can run your costs for the next 2 years to survive this. And what we're doing now is, my getting back to gym is paying off debt, stacking cash. And then for them, it's, training middle managers to be better managers, and then making sure our procedures are top notch. Because, we're about one store a year. I want to open a store a quarter when we get out of this. I want to double the size of the company in less than a year and a half. Like, that's my plans. But if you're going to double your company, I've learned when we went from 2 stores to 4 stores what that was like, and sure, going 5 to 10 might be a little different than 2 to 4, but it's all about systems. That's what everything's about. So we have to have those in place. And that's what we're working on right now. That's where the future of Caliente is. So for a number of how many do I like, I see us at 15. I'd like to be in Western Pennsylvania, where anybody can hop in their car and go a 15-minute drive and get a Caliente pizza in Western Pennsylvania. There's a place called Eaton Park here that's kind of like a Denny's. Yeah. And, it's a family-style restaurant, and they have 30 to 40 restaurants in Pennsylvania. People love pizza and beer. Why can't we have, at least 15, if not more, throughout Western Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. Roger, I love that phrase, going back to the gym, or going to the gym and getting buffed up. We've talked a little bit about that. So that's a good thing to kind of wrap this up with. What do you think?
I think that was a killer episode, and I agree with you, James. I think we should bring Nick back for round 2. What do you say, Nick? Are you open to that?
I'd be happy to. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. There's so much we covered, but there's so much still left on the table that can totally help this industry move forward, not just survive COVID, but again, so many nuggets of powerful information that we all shared today that I totally agree with. Jamie and I are all over this stuff. We need to have you back. So I'll reach out to you for that, and we will have a round 2. And we will release this episode probably in the next 2 weeks. So I'm really glad you came. I mean, I learned a lot. It's like there were so many great stories and just so much to this. This is one of the meatiest episodes, pardon the pun. And you probably bleed marinara sauce.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say pizza sauce is in my veins for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that was the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. Thank you, Nick and James, and we will see you in the next episode. That's a wrap. That was a fantastic episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed learning and listening to Nick Bogacz as well as Jamie and I did. We learned so much from this episode. But the real takeaway, of course, was systems, right? It's all about systems. And now during this crazy COVID crisis, now is the time to put systems in place in your restaurant to make it more productive, more profitable. Train your staff, maximize your profits, all these things that'll give you a fighting chance now and a brighter future down the road. If this idea intrigues you, and if your restaurant is lacking these systems, why not reach out to me? I can help. Roger, Roger, at restaurantrockstars.com. Every quarter, I take on a select few new clients, and I help them put these systems in place in their operation. But if you like to do it yourself, we have a whole suite of resources, these systems available at restaurantrockstars.com. Also, check out my friend Jaime Oikle at runningrestaurants.com for a whole suite of restaurant resources there as well. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us a review on iTunes. And don't forget, we have a new Facebook group called Restaurant Rockstars Official. Why not join? And we will see you in the next episode. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.